Hey guys, what's up? It's me, XGalaxyGirlX, and today I am going to be going over my top favorite books of 2015. So in the year 2015, I read a total of 44 books, along with 8 short stories. So yeah, I thought it was a pretty good reading year for me. So basically, I'm just going to first go through all the books that I read. You can see that in just a few seconds, and then I will be pointing out some of my favorite books of the year. Okay, so first off, let's start out with, we'll go from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So at the beginning of the year, I was reading the Lunar Chronicles, and the first book that I fell in love with completely this year was Cress, which is the third book in the Lunar Chronicles series. And this basically what the Lunar Chronicles is. The first book is Cinder, the second book is Scarlet, the third is Cress, and then the final one is Winter, which I'll talk about that later in the video. So basically all the books are fairy tale retellings. The first one is Cinderella, the second one is Little Red Riding Hood, and this one is Rapunzel. And OMG, I love it so much. Basically because of the love story in it. Cress is Rapunzel, and Thorn is the prince of Rapunzel, and it's fantastic in every single way. So it has sci-fi elements, but it's also fairy tales, and it's beautiful. And you do have to read them in order. You can't just like read one, because they all complete one story together. So you have to start with Cinder, and then Scarlet, and then Cress. So yeah. Next off in the year, I read the book Firefight, and this is book 2 in the Reckoners trilogy, and yeah, I loved it. It was fun. So the first book in the series was Steelheart, and Steelheart is about there's this one day, a weird orb appeared in the sky, and then a whole bunch of people, not everyone, but a whole bunch of people got superpowers. But everyone with superpowers is a villain. So they're all evil, and so then a group called the Reckoners try to assassinate these supervillains. So that's basically that. That's what happens. And then our main character is a boy who his father was killed by a supervillain, and he wants to be a part of the Reckoners. So yeah. That's that. It's amazing. It's so good. If you're into superhero movies or anything superhero-like, definitely pick up this book. It's brilliant. Another one of my favorite books of the year was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. And this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling with fairies. Well, they're kind of like elves, but they have like magic powers and stuff like that. But they're called fae. So, yeah. It's amazing. Sarah J. Maas is one of my favorite authors of all time. I love her books, and actually another one of her books made the list of my top favorites, but I'll get to that. But this book is so good. It's so good. If you're a fan of Beauty and the Beast, you have to read this. Or if you're a fan of fairy tales, definitely pick this up. The next book I want to talk about is All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven, and this is a contemporary book, and it's about a boy who wants to die and a girl who is trying to live. So it's just an amazing, heartfelt story, and it's so good. It's so good. It's really good. It just made my heart happy and sad. It was good. It was good. The next book I want to talk about is Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas, and yeah, this is the 4th book in the Throne of Glass series. I talk about this series all the time on my channel. I am obsessed with it. So basically the first book is called Throne of Glass, and it is a high fantasy series, and the main character, her name is Selena Sardothian, and she is an assassin, but she was like captured, and she's in these salt mines. She gets taken out by the prince so she can compete for him in these games to find the king's champion, and it's really great, and it's probably my favorite book series ever. Alright, the next book I want to talk about is The Sword of Summer, which is Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, #1. So, yeah, if you have ever read Percy Jackson, Rick Riordan, he wrote this book series as well, but it's about Asgard and the Norse mythology, which I love Norse mythology, so I think it's really interesting. So I don't know, I really like this book, so it's really wonderful, and I enjoyed this so much more than the original Percy Jackson series for some reason. If you're a fan of Thor and Loki, also read this because it's pretty hilarious. The next book I want to talk about is The Rose Society by Marie Lu, and this is the second book in the Young Elites trilogy. Basically, the Young Elites was about a disease came through the land, killed a whole bunch of people, but some people, mainly young adults, some of them got superpowers, but they're also like scarred, like they have markings on their face, and their hair changes color. So everyone has a different and unique power, and it's kind of set in a like kingdom-esque world with, it's kind of like fantasy almost, and it's really interesting. And the main character, she is kind of an anti-hero. She sometimes is good, but she's sometimes also kind of evil, and she is so interesting. And none of the characters are good or bad, but it's so interesting. It's so fun to read. So I highly recommend this book. And then the last book I want to talk about of the year is Winter by Marissa Meyer. So I love how I started out the year with the Lunar Chronicles and ended the year with the Lunar Chronicles. So Winter was the final book of the sci-fi fantasy fairy tale retelling series, and it was everything I wanted it to be and more, and Winter was a Snow White retelling. So basically it was wonderful, and a beautiful concluding novel. So I was quite happy. So yeah, those are the books that I read in 2015, and those are my top favorite books. But drum roll please for my favorite book of the year. Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. I mean, really. Sarah J. Maas. So yeah, I guess that's that. Tell me what your favorite book was that you read this year, and tell me in the comments if you've read any of the books that I read or anything like that. And also I'll leave a link to my top favorite books in the Goodreads down bar below, but if it was a third or fourth or whatever book in the series, then I'll leave the first book so you guys can look it up. So yeah, guess that's that. Talk to you guys next time. Love you all so much. Have a happy new year. Love you all. Mwah!